When you open Motion, you're going to have some decisions to make right away. Our preset, when you do File New, is the NTSC-DV preset right here. It's not none of these, because these are not going to give you the proper size video that you want to make. So NTSC-DV is what we're going to be used right now. If you set this as a default, you won't have to see this screen every time you open up the program, so go ahead and do that. Set as default, and then say OK. Once you do that, the rest of the program is going to open in its default screen, where you have the file browser up here, the library, and the inspector. Above here you have your menu, file, edit, and all of these other menu items over here. Here's your toolbar, where your selection tool is, and your text tool, which are the two tools we're going to be using in this first lesson. The other thing that we're going to need to see is our layers and our timeline. So I'm going to do Window, Timeline, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up my layers, Window, Layers. And when you do Window, Layers, and Window, Timeline, you're going to also get these very familiar from Photoshop layers. You have tabs here for media and audio, but we're going to stay in the Layers tab. And as I zoom out here, you can look down here at the bottom of the screen. You have Timeline, Keyframe Editor, and Audio Editor. And what you're going to stay in right there is the timeline. By default, also, you're going to get a group, which is right here, in which all of your items that you are creating will be in layers, just like Photoshop and Illustrator. The layers that are on the top will be closest to you in the stage. This area is called the stage. The layers on the bottom will be underneath. For example, if I go ahead and make a square, I have a rectangle right there. And if I make a circle, the circle will be on top of the square. And you could see that a little bit better if I change the color of the circle to orange or peach. You can move your objects by using the selection tool from the toolbar. You can delete objects in the stage by selecting them. You can delete them over here in the Layers palette and hit delete, or you can go down here in the timeline. In Motion, there's lots of ways to do things and create objects. So right here, if my object is selected, I can select it here in the stage or deselect it. I can select it here in the Layers palette or deselect it. And I can select it here in the timeline or deselect it. When you create words in the program, we notice that the default is white, the background is black. We can change that later if we like. But what I'd like to draw your attention to down here in the timeline is the length or the duration of the word. The reason that the word, if I delete this, you'll see what I mean, the word is going to take up the whole duration is because that is how the program is set up. If I change that, it may make my life easier. For example, if I look over here, this program is only 30 frames. I want to change that to 1,000 frames. And when I zoom out, you'll see what happens. So now, if I move my project duration, I have lots more space to work down here. This little bar at the bottom is going to be our zoom bar, where we can zoom in and zoom out. If I create another word, and I click, it's going to be the length that I've predetermined in my preferences. And I'm going to show you where that is right now. When I delete this, I'm going to delete this. And I'm going to go back up into my Apple key up here. And right next to the Apple key is the word Motion. And you're going to go to Motion Preferences. And in the Project pane, which is the third panel over, you're going to go down right here where it says Default Layer Duration. And you're going to change whatever is in there to 1 second or 1.5. And then just go ahead and close that project pane. And what will happen is, instead of having your word be the whole length of your project, it will be just about, what did I set that? 1.5 seconds. And if I hit play, you'll see 1.5. Now, The project will keep playing in between these two triangles. If I zoom in, you could see. These two triangles, the project will keep playing in between these two triangles so that I can just work in this one little area. If I want to extend the area that I want to work in up to 1,000, I could just keep moving this triangle over as I move through my project. You may not want to have the beginning of your project all the time way in the beginning, but you'll see how that works a little bit later. But for right now, after you get your quote, I'm going to delete this. After you get your quote, what you're going to do is take the words of the quote that you've chosen, that you've gotten approval from the teacher, and you're going to just start to time them. And I'm simply going to do the Pledge of Allegiance because that's an easy one. So I'm going to type I. I'm going to do this in groups, and I'm just going to do it sort of randomly. Pledge. I'm going to deselect and select. I think I'm going to make allegiance. I'm going to type each word separately. 2. And you'll see how the words are getting created in the layers palette. The flag. And I think I'm going to just leave that as my beginning. I'm going to just move these. Maybe I'll resize some of these now as I'm working and put them in a certain position to the flag. When you're working in motion, what you don't want to do is have your words bounce around from top to bottom or be too far away from each other. So watch that negative space. We're always talking about negative space in the art room. You don't want too much space in between. So if I hit play, it'll just say, I pledge allegiance to the flag, because the beginning duration and the end duration of the words is the same. Once I get my first part of my quote down, what I'm going to start to do is to time it. So how you time how the words appear on the stage is you move the playhead over a little bit and then drag the layer. So I've just chosen I pledge allegiance to the flag. And we already know that wherever this playhead is what is going to be visible on the stage. So because my playhead only has the word I underneath it, that's what I'm going to see. So you will see these words flash onto the screen awfully fast. So watch this. I'm going to move my little play zone so I don't have to go all the way to the end. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Very quickly comes on. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Now you will have a GarageBand voice track to follow and help you time your work. I'm just doing it by repeating it over and over again. So I think this is way too fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this by dragging the end of each of the layers to the end, to the same spot. Scroll up a little bit. And then I'm going to move each word over again and see if I can get that timing down a little bit better. I pledge allegiance to the flag. Let's see what happens now. I pledge allegiance to the flag. A little bit better, but I think I can time that a little bit better too. I pledge. Now I'll move this down a bit. Here's a little trick. If you hold the Shift key and you select each of these instead of dragging them all separately, I know that I want them all to end right here. So I'm going to move my playhead down and simply hit the letter O, indicating that that's where I want the out point to be. Then I can go to the beginning again, deselect, I pledge allegiance to the flag. That seems pretty good to me. Let's play that again. I pledge allegiance to the flag.